Africa is home to 54 globally recognized countries, most of which can be found on the coast of the continent, and 16 of them are landlocked: Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Central African Republic, Chad, Ethiopia, Lesotho, Malawi, Mali, Niger, Rwanda, South Sudan, Swaziland, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. In other words, about a third of the continent is made up of countries that have no access to the ocean or sea. Of Africa's landlocked countries, 14 of them are ranked low on the Human Development Index, HDI, a statistic that takes into account factors such as life expectancy, education, and income per capita. Before we go into the list of landlocked countries in Africa, let us first understand what it means and takes for a country to be landlocked. A country's level of access to water can have an enormous effect on its economy. Being landlocked is more problematic for importing and exporting goods because it is much cheaper to transport products over water than over land. Land transport also takes longer. These factors make it more difficult for landlocked countries to participate in the global economy, and landlocked nations thus grow more slowly than countries that have water access. Because of decreased access to trade, landlocked countries are often cut off from selling and purchasing goods. The fuel prices that they have to pay and the amount of food they have to use to move goods and people are higher as well. Cartel control among the companies that truck the goods can make shipping prices artificially high. In theory, international treaties should guarantee countries access to oceans, but it is not always this easy. Transit states, those with access to coasts, determine how to implement these treaties. They call the shots at granting shipping or port access to their landlocked neighbors, and if the governments are corrupt, that can add an extra layer of cost or delays in shipping goods, including border and port bottlenecks, tariffs, or customs regulations problems. If their neighbors' infrastructure isn't well developed or border crossings are inefficient, that adds to the problems of the landlocked country and the slowdown. When their goods finally do make it to port, they wait longer to get their goods out of port as well, let alone getting to the port in the first place. If the neighboring country is unsettled or at war, transportation for the landlocked country's goods could be impossible through that neighbor and its water access be much further afield, a span of years. It is difficult for landlocked nations to build infrastructure and attract any outside investment in infrastructure projects that would allow easy border passage. Depending on a landlocked nation's geographic location, goods coming from there may have to travel long distances over poor infrastructure just to reach the neighbor with the coastal shipping access, let alone travel through that country to arrive at the coast. Poor infrastructure and issues with borders can lead to unpredictability in logistics and thus harm the country's companies' ability to compete in the global marketplace. Poor infrastructure of landlocked nations hurts tourism from outside nations, and international tourism is one of the world's largest industries. But the lack of access to easy transit in and out of a country can have even worse effects. In times of natural disaster or violent regional conflict, escape is much more difficult for residents of landlocked nations. The nation of Botswana happens to be a landlocked country found in the southern regions of Africa with a landscape that is very well defined by the Kalahari Desert as well as the Okavango Delta, which is known to transform into a healthy animal habitat when seasonal floods occur. The vast and famous Central Kalahari Game Reserve, as well as its fossilized river channels and endlessly undulating grasslands, is an abode to a diverse range of animals, consisting of giraffes, hyenas, cheetahs, and wild dogs. The country gained its independence in 1966 and is famous for its wealth of diamonds, one of the scarcest natural objects in the whole world. Thanks to its reserved wildlife features, the company makes around 12% of its GDP from tourism and wildlife. As a matter of fact, many of the wildlife documentaries that you see on TV have a very high chance of being filmed or shot in Botswana. Located on the south of the equator, back in the eastern part of Central Africa, Burundi happens to be one of the very few African countries whose geopolitical zones and borders were in no way determined or influenced by the European colonial rulers. This is largely due to it being far from the shores and further inland, making it hard to access by the then European explorers. Of its 11 million population, the vast majority comprises the Hutu tribe, known for their farming and simpler lifestyle. The minority is, however, made up of the Tutsi, who appear to be the ruling tribe, having held offices in the government and holding lucrative positions within the country even today. This has led to tension and dissatisfaction due to the inequality of status between the two tribes. This West African landlocked country is called Burkina Faso, which can loosely be translated to mean the land of honest men. A name that is quite ironic, considering the very fact that in spite of its land being rich in one of the most valuable metals on earth, gold, the country continues to be plagued by both domestic and foreign threats, and the government is laced with so much corruption. There are approximately over 21 million Burkinabe, what a citizen of this country is called, living in the country today. Like Burkina Faso, Chad is a landlocked country, but it is actually situated in the north-central region of the continent. It is bordered by Libya, South Sudan, Central African Republic, and Cameroon to the north, east, southwest, and south, respectively. The country is home to the renowned Lake Chad that blesses the terrain. Its 16 million population consists mainly of farmers of cotton and Sahara-like agriculture. However, since 2003, the country has struck oil literally. After the discovery of oil fields in Chad, the country's national eyes have kept their fingers crossed in apt hopefulness that the economic situation of the country would change for the better. This hope has become bleak over the years due to the rising insurgency and terrorist activities, especially in recent times. Located snugly in the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia became a landlocked country in 1993 after Eritrea broke away to become a country on its own, thereby cutting off its access to the Red Sea. It is the largest as well as the country with the highest population, found in the Horn of the continent. Sandwiched between the rivers Zambezi and Limpopo in the southeastern part of the continent, sits the landlocked nation of Zimbabwe. The Republic of Zimbabwe became an independent country in 1980 after 15 years of colonial rule. Blessed with thousands of acres of natural wildlife reserves as well as reliefs and plains and mountains, Zimbabwe is one of the best naturally sculpted African nations. This high-altitude country is famous for its cold climate, as well as its calmness and hospitable inhabitants. It is decorated with an exquisite array of rivers, mountains, hills and valleys, laid out in a picturesque manner. Its capital, Maseru, is home to the nation's government that directs the affairs of its 2 million-plus citizens. Formerly referred to as Nyasaland, Malawi is a country located in the nest of the southeastern region of Africa. It is landlocked thanks to its surrounding border nations, namely Zambia, Tanzania and most of its 19 million citizens are cash crop farmers, and its major export is tobacco and tea. This landlocked country in the western part of Africa also happens to be the eighth largest country in the whole African continent. Out of its 19 million citizens, 67% of them are made up of 25-year-olds and people younger than that. The country has an official language of French as well as a really deep African heritage. Out of all the countries in Africa with a history of violence, Rwanda seems to be the only African country that has been able to bounce back from it with so much swiftness and strength. This landlocked country can be located in the Great Rift Valley, which is a couple of degrees south of the equator. The capital, Kigali, is home to the administrative arm of the country, which governs its 13 million citizens who speak 3 major languages, namely English, French and Kinyarwanda, which is the official native tongue of the people. Niger is a landlocked West African country that is surrounded by Libya, Mali, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and the Benin Republic. Its official language is French, which is spoken by its 24 million inhabitants. Thanks to its location and climate, it experiences drought, leading to a series of famines and drought-induced problems. There is also a high level of insecurity along its borders, making it one of the most dangerous West African nations. These and other factors have had a negative influence on the country's economy over the years, causing a drop in its GDP. Located deep in the northern region of East Africa, the Republic of South Sudan is a landlocked nation surrounded by the Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Uganda, and just recently, North Sudan, or Sudan. It is comprised of mainly Christians as well as animists, as opposed to their northern counterpart, which is largely populated by Muslims. In the past decade, the country has been plagued by war and famine and is only starting to rise from its ashes. This small serene landlocked country is sandwiched between Mozambique and South Africa. Formerly known as the Kingdom of Eswatini, Swaziland is the country with the smallest landmass in all of Africa. And compared to other countries, Swaziland has arguably the smallest population in Africa, with just a little over 1 million. It has a monarchical governance system that seems to just work for it. Kenya, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Rwanda are a few of the countries that enclose the borders of Uganda. Located in the heart of East Africa, Uganda is home to various snow-capped mountains as well as the beautiful Lake Victoria. It has a beautiful landscape and wildlife conservation. Its 46 million indigenes speak either or both English and Swahili, as these are the two major languages of the country. The landlocked country of Zambia is located in the deep southern region of the African continent. This country is built on tropical vegetation and is blessed with a beautiful landscape of waterworks, from waterfalls to lakes and streams. It is a natural paradise on earth. The country thrives on its wildlife and tourism sector. The official language is English and there are well over 18 million people living in Zambia right now. As the name implies, this country is located deep in the heart of Africa. It is as landlocked could possibly get. Out of its 4.3 million people, about 89% of them are Christians. In spite of these numbers, the country seems to be plagued by various vices and crimes. This is as a result of the government's corruption and social unrest.